Hello. Sorry I'm late. I had another
Hello.
meeting I just got out of. Okay, let me get set up. Okay. Oh, is everything okay? Do you see the desktop and you can hear me now all right?
Yes.
Yep.
Does everything seem to be working?
Yep.
Let's see. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, okay. All right. Because I wasn't hearing anything back. All right. So, okay. So today's the last day of class. Okay. We reached the end of the semester. Remember that the exam is on Monday, and the review material for the exam is here from day before yesterday. So all the information about the exam is here. Okay. So there's these review problems. Okay. So either today we'll start off by, if anybody's got a question about review problems, we can look at those, and then otherwise we'll do another example of designing a class to talk more about, review more about the idea of classes, because what we've done since the last exam are arrays and classes, and that's what we've been talking about lately is classes. Okay. So first, does anybody have any question about the general idea about the final exams? Anybody still any question come up about the final exam itself or the course? Any question about the course or about the exam coming up?
So it's going to be a similar format to the other two,
between
just a bit
now
longer.
and the exam, if you have questions, send me email or come to office hours. We won't meet next week. You know, the exam is the Monday, and actually no classes meet during final exam week. Classes don't meet during final exam week. There's only the exams. So we won't meet on Wednesday, like a week. We're done on Monday. Monday's the last day. When you take the exam, there won't be a meeting on Wednesday. Okay. Oh, what's? Yeah, I'm not hearing anything. Are you talking to me?
Yeah, I was just saying something.
I'm not hearing anything.
Test.
I think you're up. Let's see. No, I'm not muted. Muted, unmuted. Somebody unplugged my speakers. Yeah, I followed the cord of the speaker across the desk, and it had come apart. Okay, so yeah, my speaker had been turned off. Okay, somebody say something, please.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Now my speaker's on. Okay, that makes more sense. Okay. All right. Yeah, that's why I always start off by asking, does everything seem okay? Because it's so easy for something to not be okay. Okay, so let's start back over again. Did anybody have any question about the upcoming final exam or the class? Any question about that?
So it'll be due at the end of the day, right? Not like
Yeah.
a specific time.
11. I'll make it due at 11 in the evening.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So any other question? Any question about? Okay. Now, actually, the other thing you have outstanding right now is the current homework assignment. Anyone have any question about the homework assignment? I know I've gotten emails about it, and I've been answering the emails, but anybody have like a general question about the homework? I mean, if you have questions, specific questions, you can send me emails. Does anybody have a question about it right now? Let me show you something real quick.
Someone did ask something about the homework in the chat.
Where? Oh. I'm not sure when you say what variables are we supposed to use. I'm not sure what you mean. Like in which example? Here's one possibility of
Could we go over maybe on the circle class? Could we go over the first part of step 4? Kind of give us a little hint there.
Oh, okay. Well, first let me back up, because the other question, I think I might know what people are asking about. The rectangle class has this constructor. So you're supposed to add this constructor to the rectangle class. I mean, there's this constructor already there, and now you're supposed to add this constructor, okay? And it looks like, there's new variables, point and dimension. And some people have been asking about that. You do not add a point up here or a dimension up here. A point holds an X and Y. So this point is telling you what X and Y are. And a dimension holds a height and a width. So this dimension is telling you what these are. So that's the key idea, is that a point knows an X and a Y, and a dimension knows a width and a height. So when the rectangle class is asked to build something with a point and a dimension, what you're really saying is get X and Y out of here, put them in here, and get width and height out of here and put them in here. Okay? So you don't need new, I don't know if that's what people meant by, but you don't need a point variable and a dimension variable up here. Okay, that would be redundant. Okay. All right, so that's one question. That's one question I've gotten a few times. And remember, the other thing is that point X and Y are private. So you don't, like over here, it's not going to work to do something like P dot X. Okay, that's a point object. That won't work. What do you have to do here to get at the X and P? If something's private, how do you get access to it?
Use the method get Y, get X.
Yeah, use the accessor methods, get X and get Y. So down here, you can't use that one. What you're supposed to do is something like P dot get X, and that's a method. Okay, so use that. So this won't compile, this will. Okay, all right. So that's one important thing, is that this is private in the point class. X, well, I should say X is private in the point class. You need to move that X into this X. This is this X. So you can't say that won't work. What will work is this dot X got get X. Okay. Right.
So just a quick question, Professor. I mean, not to jump around, but on the circle class,
Yeah.
I believe on the beginning of the on step 4.
Step 4.
Where you're supposed to find the distance. Yeah, there we go. Boolean overlap. I tried doing something similar, and for some reason, it's not allowing me to get X.
Okay. What do you mean? You did something similar to what?
To what you just did over with the rectangle.
Oh, okay. Now let's see. A circle holds a center, which is a point, and a radius, which is a double. Okay, and the center holds an X and a Y. So the point holds an X and a Y. Okay, now you're asked if two circles overlap. Okay, so you've got this circle and that circle. Okay, so you got to write this one. Okay. Okay, so there's two circles. There's this circle and that circle. Okay. Now, when as it said, they overlap when they're close together. Okay. So this circle and that circle overlap when they are close. But what does close mean?
The close means that that their X and Y distance are less than the radius.
Distance between the centers is less than the sum of radii. Okay, distance between the centers is less than the sum of the radii. Okay. Okay, so how do you get sum of radii?
Radius of one circle.
Okay, how do I say that? Yeah, how do I say radius of one of them?
This dot radius?
Yeah, this dot radius. That's this one. What about that one?
C dot radius?
Ah, okay, now that's not going to work. What's wrong with that?
I'm not sure. Oh, actually, is there a get there? See, there isn't a get radius, right?
Oh, let's see. Well, it's no, you're right. There isn't a get radius, but since here's the trick, there's actually a subtle trick here. This does work because we are in the radius. We are in the circle class. See, this guy is a circle and we are in the circle class. So we're not obliged to pay attention to that private. So this one does work here. Now, why didn't it work over here? Why didn't it work in rectangle? What was wrong with in rectangle? Why does this not work?
It's a different class.
It's a different class. The P is not, see, we're not in the point class, we're in the rectangle class. When we're outside of the point class, we can't use P dot X, we have to use P dot get X. If we're outside of the point class, we have to use the accessor method. Over here, everything's inside the circle class. We have this and that circle, but we're doing the code all in the circle class. So I don't need the get radius here. If there was a get radius, I could use it. It wouldn't be wrong to use it, but I don't need it here. And there isn't actually a get radius defined in the homework assignment. You could put one in there if you want. The circle class should have a get radius, but I didn't want to just keep listing more and more methods. Okay, so normally you would put a get radius in the circle class, but you don't need it here. Okay, now what about, okay, that's the right-hand side. There's the sum of the radii. Now what about the left-hand side? Distance between the centers. Now there's two centers. What are they called?
C1 and C2, I believe.
No. There were two radii, and they were what?
Oh, okay. So this would be this dot. Is it this dot X? Oh no. Oh. Okay.
This dot center and C dot center.
I see. Okay.
So there's the two centers. Now,
so where am I getting the center from then? Where's the center coming from?
It's right here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
all right.
see, it's a field in it. This is a circle, and this circle has a center. And this is a circle, so this circle has a center. Okay. Now, so we have two centers. Okay. Now, the center is a point. This center is a point, right? And I want the distance between that point and that point. I want the distance between these 2 points. How do I find the distance between 2 points? I've got a point here. That is, see, that thing is a point. This dot center is a point. And C dot center is a point. And I want
Subtract.
the distance between the points.
You just subtract.
No. That doesn't give you distance.
Okay.
Like take the point 1, 1 and the point 2, 2 in the plane. How far apart are they?
Do you have to do the square root of a?
Yeah, you have to use the
X.
Pythagorean theorem. Yeah, see,
Okay.
if you have the point 1, 1 and the point 2, 2 in the plane, the distance between them is the square root of 2. It's the diagonal line between them. All right. So you have to use the Pythagorean theorem. Pardon me?
Could you use the distance method that
Right.
already had?
Right. See, I did that hardest part for you. I put a distance method in the point class. So this computes the distance between this point and that point. Okay. So points know how to compute the distance between 2 of them. So we go back over here. How do I find the distance between that point and that point? There's a distance method that'll find the distance between 2 points. How do I call it? This guy's a point. This guy's a point. And the point class has a distance method that takes a point as a parameter, and it computes the distance between this point and that point. I didn't write the thises in here. So that's between this point and that point. This point, see, I'm computing the distance between this and that. This point and that point. Okay, so points know how to compute their distance. How do I use that over here? Here's 1 point.
Do you type this dot center dot distance parentheses C dot center?
This dot center. Now, okay, that's a point, right? There's a point. And I can call dot distance. See, that's calling the distance method on a point. And then what's the parameter?
The other point, C dot center.
C dot center. Okay, there's the distance between them. Okay, so this is the distance between the centers. This, notice how the word this is horrible because I keep using the word this. I'm using, there's this, and then I talk about this formula here. That blue formula that's highlighted is the distance between 2 centers. This formula is the sum of 2 radiuses. Okay, right. So there's how you would do the distance between centers. Distance between the centers is less than the sum of the radii. Okay, so there's the condition you need. This dot center dot distance of, so that's the distance between this center and that center. And I could have called this that. Yeah, and then it's some people like it that way, this and that.
So then would you just wrap that up in some sort of if statement and return? Okay.
Yep. Yep. Then you have to wrap it in an if statement and decide, what to return. Okay. All right. So No, it's a little bit tricky. Yeah, it's because you're doing a lot of, like, look how many things are happening here. There is this object that I'm working in, and it has a center, but that center is a point. So on that point, I can call the distance method, and then I have to say, oh, I want the distance between this guy and some other guy, but the other guy is that other parameter, the other circle parameter. So it's between this center and the other circle's center. But those are actually points. That's a point, and that's a point. Here's something that some people would do. Why would somebody like that?
Does it
So you
make
can-
it more readable?
More readable. Someone, okay, see here, let me compare reading this line with compare reading that line with reading that line. You know, compare reading that to reading that. See, here you have to say, well, this dot center is a point, so I can call the distance method on that point, and then I'm computing the distance between that point and this other point. Now notice when you read this line, you have to put all that information in there. Here, somebody said, there's a point called this dot center, there's a point called C dot center, and I want the distance between those, oh, and then I want the distance between those 2 points, right? Okay, so that can be said to be a lot more readable than that. Right? So some people would do that. Some programmers would want their code to be readable. So they're helping you realize that you've got 2 points. One is this one, the other one's that one, and you're computing the distance between 2 points, as opposed to somebody having to parse all this and figure out that guy's a point, that guy's a point, so it's the distance between 2 points. Okay, so either one's a good way to write it. Some people like just 1 line of code in place of 3 lines of code, and some people like more readable code. So and it turns out this is not any slower than this, because this is exactly what the computer has to do anyway. It has to fetch that point, then it has to fetch that point, then it has to call distance on that point and that point. So the computer is actually going to take, Java is going to actually take this line and break it up into those 3 steps. So Java, this wouldn't slow it down. This isn't doing 3 steps where this is only doing 1 step, because the Java language has to literally break this down into these little steps anyway. So you don't lose anything by writing this out a little bit more verbosely. Okay, right. So that's the idea there. You distance between 2 points. Okay, and that's probably the hardest line of code in the whole assignment, because look how many dots there are. You know, dot, dot, dot. You know, you're really using the dot notation. The center of this guy, the distance method on that center point, with the parameter the center of that guy. Okay, lots of dots. So lots of ideas, which is what, this is supposed to help a little bit, pull it apart and make it a little bit easier to read. Okay, all right. What about other questions of the homework?
For that same problem,
The overlap one?
Yeah, would C.center.distance work?
Oh, sure. yeah, it doesn't matter. So you could turn this around and you could flip it over. What's the difference? The distance between A and B is the same as the distance between B and A. Okay, so sure, that's a good point. You can flip it around if you want. You could start off with the center of C and ask how far is it away from this center. You get the same answer if you start with this center and ask how far is it from C center. Okay, so that's a good point. You can flip it around. And in this case, that's a math property. You can flip it around. It's not a Java property. That's a math property that the distance between A and B is the same as the distance between B and A. Okay, so it doesn't matter what order you ask the distance from. Okay, so that's a good point. So you can write it that other way if you want to. Okay, well, okay. Other questions about the homework assignment? Okay. Now, okay, let's go to review problems. Is anybody, I mean, they've only been up there 2 days, but has anybody had time to look at them and got a question about any of the review problems? I know they haven't been up there very long, but has anybody had a chance to look at them and see something they were?
Could we look at number 5?
Okay. Okay. So let's do that in the Java visualizer. Okay. Write a method called, so public, there's a method. Okay. Yeah, so we're going to write them. Now, notice I haven't said what the return value is. I haven't said what the parameters are, but I've got a method. I got the name of it and the body and an empty body. Write a method called sum subarray that accepts. Now, the word accept means what its parameter would be. A reference to an array of doubles. Okay, a reference to array of doubles would mean double array A. Okay, I won't be real creative with my name. I'll just call my array A. Okay, so there's now remember, array parameters are always by definition references. Okay, it's arrays are objects, so that's a reference variable, not a primitive variable that accepts a reference to an array of doubles and 2 ints. Okay, so that means there's going to be an int. I don't know. I'll just call it let's see. I'll just call it A and int B. Maybe I don't know what they're there for yet, so maybe they can get better names. Oh, I can't use A because I'm using A for here. I'll just call it like B and C. Those are bad names, but I don't know what they represent yet. Okay, so it takes a reference to an array of doubles and 2 ints. If the 2 ints are valid indices, then the method should return the sum of the values stored in the array between those indices. So these are indexes into that array. So a better name would here be index 1 and index 2. Okay, so that'd be better names. So the idea is that this is an array, and I'm told this is some place in the array, and this is some other place in the array. Okay, if the 2 ints are valid indices, now notice there's a word if here, so that means I have to check something. I'll have to start off here with an if, because I'm being asked if something. Okay, if the 2 ints are valid indices, then the method should return the sum of the values stored in the array whose indices are between the 2 ints. If the 2 ints are not valid, then the method should return 0. Okay, so this will be so here's what I'll do. Else return 0. So I'm going to check for here's where I'll check for valid indexes. If the indexes are valid, then I do something. Then I sum things. I do a sum. Otherwise, I return 0. Okay. If the two ints are valid indices, then the method should return the sum of the values stored in the array whose indices are between the two ints. Okay. If the two ints are not valid as indexes, then the method should return 0. Okay. So let's worry about a minute what it means by valid index. What I'm supposed to do here is sum the array between index 1 and index 2. See, if the indices are valid, then the method should return the sum of the values stored in the array whose indices are between the two ints, inclusive. Okay, so int sum equal 0. I'm gonna compute a running sum. Int sum equals 0 for int I equals index 1, starting where I'm supposed to start. I less than or equal to index 2, stopping where I'm supposed to stop. I plus plus. For every one of those indexes, sum plus equal AI. Okay, what did I do? What does this loop do here?
It adds up the elements in between it adds up all of the elements in between two indices.
Yeah, we did adding up the elements in an array as an example, and this is just adding up what's between two indexes. Now, notice that there has to be a worry here. I mean, by itself, what's potentially wrong with this loop?
The indexes might not be in the array.
Yeah, they could be, this one could extend way past the end of the array. This one could be a negative number. I could be starting with a negative number. See, they're just integers. So this could be a negative number, which would be a bad thing for an array to start with a negative number. This could go way past the end of the array. Notice I'm not going from 0. Normally, if you want to sum the whole array, if you were going to sum the whole array, I'll just make this a comment. If you were summing the whole array, you'd go from index 0 up to a dot length, and you wouldn't include that as your, so remember, there is no index length, so you'd go from I equals 0 up to I strictly less than a dot length. So that would add up the whole array. You know, that would sum the whole array. But we're starting at index 1 instead of starting at 0. And we're stopping at index 2 instead of stopping at the length minus 1. So we have to worry, this thing better be larger than 0. So that's one of my tests here. If I need index 1 larger than or equal to 0. See, I better have index 1 larger or equal to 0. Because that, you know, essentially that's saying I don't want it to be negative. So I want index 1 to be larger than this. Now I need something else to check. You see, what else do I need to make this stuff work? What else do I need for these numbers to be good in this sum here? I need this guy to start out. I need this guy to be greater than or equal to 0, because otherwise, you know, otherwise I'd be off the left edge of the array. Okay. What else do I need for this to make sense?
It's less than the array length.
What needs to be less than the array length?
Index 2.
Index, yeah, okay, look over here. Index 2, which is supposed to be the right index, it can't go past the length of the array. I need index 2 to be strictly less than. No, it's not less than or equal to. Because remember, this thing's, you didn't go up to the length. You went up to one less than the length. So I need this strictly less than a dot length. Okay. I need something else. There's a third thing I need to check. Oh, I forgot the 2 here. Index 2. I need index 1 to be to the right of 0. And I need index 2 to be left of the length of the array. What else needs to be true for this thing to make sense?
They have to be index 1 is less than index 2.
Yeah, and I'll write that. I'm going to write it in a different order. I'm going to put that in the middle here. I need index 1 has to be less than or equal to index 2. And now if you read this in order, it's saying that index 1 has to be the right of 0. Index 1 has to be the left of index 2. And index 2 has to be the left of the length. So if you're putting them on a number line, that's saying that the 3 numbers, yeah, index 1 has to be, yeah, they have to be on a number line like this. Yeah, on a number line, you'd have to have 0, then index 1, then index 2, then a dot length. So on a number line, they have to be in that order. Now this one here is a less than or equal. This one here is also a less than or equal to. Why? Now, there's a little bit of question of whether it should be this or this. Why do I not need strictly less than here? What does that do? If index 1 equals index 2, is there a problem there?
Is not a problem. The sum will just come out to 0.
No, no, oh no. If I add up the numbers between the index 5 and index 5, what should I get? Add up the numbers between index 5 and index 5.
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying.
What would you get?
You get an error.
No. So, okay, go back. How do you add up the numbers between index 5 and index 6?
You just start at 5.
And go 1 past it to 6. But you start at 5, right? So how would you add up the numbers between index 5 and index 5?
You would just include the number for index 5 only once.
Yes. Yeah. You'd start at 5. You start at index 5, and that's your value. You'd stop there. You'd start and stop there. But what you would turn would be the value at index 5. Okay? Because if you're going to go from 5 to 6, you'd start at 5 and then add on 6. So if you're going to go from 5 to 5, you'd start at 5 and there's nothing to add on. So that's you're done. You return the value at 5. Okay? So the less than or equal works. Okay? You would only be adding up one number in that case. And this one needs to be strictly less than. Okay? All right? So that's what we're checking for here. Index 1 is to the right of 0. Index 1 is to the left of index 2. And index 2 is strictly to the left of the length of the array. Okay? If that's true, that's what I mean by valid indexes. The indexes make sense. This one's just, now some people would call this now start and end. Okay? It's hard to know if I mean, a lot of times when this is written, people call this the start index and the end index. Okay, so index 1, index 2 are not bad names. The first index, the second index. The first index is where you start adding up, and the second index is where you stop adding up. Okay, and you want it to be like this. Okay, so you want it to look like this. Okay. Now remember, this is not valid Java. This is valid mathematics, but that's not valid Java. To make that valid Java, you have to turn it in that inequality and that inequality and that inequality. There's really 3 inequalities there, and you have to write them out in longhand. There are programming languages where you can get away with writing something like that, where you can write the mathematical thing like that. There are programming languages that let you write it that way, but not too many. Most don't let you write it this way. They make you write it with the inequality and inequality and inequality. But math courses a long time ago decided that this is easy to read. So they just let you say index is between 0, index 1 is between 0 and index 2, index 2 is between index 1 and a dot length. Okay, so it's interesting that math notation is the easy to read math notation. It's not really clear why programming languages make you write it out the long way. Okay, it's not that hard for them to let you do this, and a couple languages have, but most don't. Okay, they make you write it out this long way. All right, that's actually the whole answer. Okay, so write a method called sum. Now notice subarray is the key here. We're not summing up the whole array. We're summing a sub part of the array. So we're summing a sub part of the array. Okay, that accepts a reference to the array. That's the array we're working with. Oh, I haven't finished something. I'm sorry. Then I would have to return sum. I forgot the return statement. Okay. So in here, if it's a valid set of indices, I declare a sum that's starting off at 0, add up the numbers, and then return the sum. Okay. If it's not a valid set of indices, I'm supposed to just return 0. Okay. So that accepts a reference to an array of doubles and 2 ints. Okay. You don't know what they are until you keep reading. What are the 2 ints? If the 2 ints are valid indices, so that's what it tells you what the 2 ints are, then the method should return the sum of the values stored in the array whose indices are between the 2 ints. Okay. And if they're not valid, so that's this else case. I can put down here else not valid indices. Okay. So yeah, I can put a little comment to help people read. Yeah. So if they're valid, do the summation, else return 0. Okay. Notice that when you write programs like this, you don't really necessarily write them from top to bottom. Notice I did not write this from line here, line here, line here, line. I didn't write it from top to bottom, and almost nobody actually would write code that way. You read the description and you start thinking, as you're reading here, you actually say, well, that gives me information right there. Okay. Oh, actually, I haven't finished this quite yet. I'll show you in a minute. I'm still not done. This won't compile yet. You know, write a method called subarray. Well, okay, then I know I have a method called that, okay, that accepts a reference to an array of doubles. Okay, I know I need a reference to an array of doubles as a parameter. And 2 ints. Now I can go back up here and fill in that part, okay? But I don't know what the ints means. Maybe I just give them dummy names. Then I read a little bit more. If the 2 ints are valid indices, that told me something about what the 2 ints are. They are indices. So I give them better names. Yeah. Then, so notice I fill in as I'm going along. Now, one thing I haven't done is I haven't said what the return type is. What is the return type of this method? I mean, I didn't know. It just said write a method called subarray, okay? And it didn't tell me, and it says what it returns, but what's the return type?
Is it double?
Double, because actually, if I want, I can put a 0.0 here, yeah. And you're summing up. It's an array of doubles. You're adding up what's in that array, so you're returning double here. Now, it never said that explicitly in here. See, that was something I have to figure out myself. What makes sense? Well, I'm adding up the numbers in an array of doubles, so that must mean I'm returning a double value, the sum of all those numbers. Okay? It never said that explicitly here. It says if the 2 ints are valid, then the method should return the sum of the values. Okay, that tells me what I'm doing. I'm adding up doubles, so I should return a double. Okay, so now it should be done. We can now, let's see, just check, make sure that it should compile. Okay, it compiled. And now I can test it. I can test it by doing create an array, double A equal okay, there's an array of doubles. And now okay, a dot subarray. Let me sub the array A between 5 and 5. Oh, I don't have a fifth index. Let me sum it between 3 and, well, I'll do it between 2 and 2. Okay. So index 0, index 1, index 2, index 3, but sum it between 2 and 3. Oh, now what did I do wrong? What did it say? What did I do? Does anybody see what did I do? Oh, this is a stat. I forgot another thing. This is a static method. This should be, it's not an instance method. This is just a static method. Actually, I forgot to put that in the problem. That should have said write a static method. Well, that's actually a misprint in the problem. This should have been it's not an instance method in a class. So if you're not an instance method in a class, you're a static method. Okay, so this is a static method. So I just call it by its name. Okay, so it's a static method. It's not a, we're not writing a class and putting this method in a class. It's just a method that sits by itself. So that's a static method, like we did at the beginning of the semester. We wrote static methods before we wrote instance methods. So there. So here I'm going to create the array. Okay. Now I'm going to call this method. Okay. Right. It's going to pass the test for valid array indexes. Now the sum is 0. Okay. Now I'm going to start at index 1. Index 1 is 2, 0, 1, 2. So I'm starting at that index there. Okay. Okay. And I add in one value to sum. Okay. So sum has got, oh, that was dumb. I made a dumb mistake. Does anybody see what a dumb mistake I made? Nobody caught this a minute ago. Look at what's happening over here. I made a dumb little mistake.
You make it an integer if it's supposed to be a double.
Yeah, the sum is supposed to be, I'm adding up doubles. I'm adding up doubles, so my result should be a double. I should start with double int 0, sum 0. Okay. And what else? I made another dumb mistake. Notice that compiled. I mean, why did that compile? No, let's see. Did I make a no? Okay, no, this is a double array. No, this is a double array. Okay, so that's a double array, and this should be double here. Okay. All right. Okay, so I should be adding up doubles. Notice how you have to test code to see what's really going on. That's why after you write the code, you should always write one little test. And it looks like the Java visualizer. Okay, let me copy and paste this and save it, just in case the visualizer is kind of goofed up. Now, let me try again. See if, oh, it's hung now. Okay, so let me copy this and just open a new page to the Java visualizer. Try again. Okay, see, So this page is just, does it come back? See, it's still hung. I'm just going to close this one. All right. Remember, Job Visualizer every once in a while screws up. If it screws up, make a copy of what's in your code and just open another tab to it. Okay. So I'm going to sum. I want to sum this array, but I'm only the answer should be 4.5 because I'm summing from 2 to 2. Okay. So create the array, jump down here. Those are valid indices. Okay, so now I'm ready to start the for loop. Okay, initialize my sum to 0. Okay, now start the for loop. Okay, index I is 2. See, I start at 2. I'm going to add I to sum. Okay, so now the sum has got 4.5. Let's see. The sum has got 4.5 added into it. So I added that into the sum. So the sum is 4.5. Then I go up here. I'm going to increment index to 3, but 3 is larger than 2. So I'm going to drop out of the loop now. See, so I dropped out of the loop, and the sum is just that one number. So if you sum an array between location 2 and location 2, you get back location 2. Okay? Okay. Now on the other hand, if I go back and sum up between 2 and 3, I'll add up those two numbers there. Oh, actually, what if I sum between 2 and 5? See, 0, 1. This thing has length 4. That should be an invalid index. Okay, so now I should get an invalid index. I have index 5 is past the end of this array. So out of this long thing here, this one's going to fail. I mean, I won't know it's that one. The test will fail, but it's going to fail because of that one. So go forward. See, I failed the validity test. I had invalid indices, so I'm going to return 0. Okay, so the answer is 0. Okay, so we saw that. So it tests the indices the way we want it to. Okay, and if I add up between 2 and 3, it'll add up 2 numbers. It'll do 2 trips through the for loop. Create the array. Okay, now we have valid indices, so we start the sum. We start the sum at 0. We start with index 2. Index is starting at 2. Add up 2 into the sum. Add the 4.5 into the sum. Now go to index 3. Add the 5.6 into the sum. Okay. Now I goes to 4, and that's going to fail because 4 is not less than index 2. Okay, so 4 is not less than index 2 here. So 4 is larger than index 2. So now we're going to drop out of the for loop, and now we return our sum, 10.1. Okay. All right. All right. So notice you write code by reading the description, going and adding things to the code. We don't need that one anymore. Okay. You don't write code from top to bottom. It really is written in a kind of a circular way of reading the description, saying, oh, that tells me a little bit more about what's up here. Reading the description, that tells me a little bit more about what's up here. Reading the description, that tells me a little bit more about what's up here. Then when you think it's done, you need to write a test. Then you have to look carefully at your test to make sure that you actually passed the test, not just that you compiled, but you did something right. Notice that our method was wrong, but it compiled, but it had some dumb errors in it. Okay, so just compiling alone isn't a test that you're right. You got to write a test and make sure you pass the test. And then making sure you pass the test might make you find mistakes in your code. Okay, all right. So I need to remember that one thing about that should have been a static method. Okay, it's not in a class, so the method has to be static. Okay, all right. What about other problems? Was there any other problem from the review, did anybody notice? Any other question about a review problem that somebody had?
Can we look at problem 9?
Number 9?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, I guess I should say stat. Oh yeah, see here it says static. Okay. Okay. So let me copy this into the another Java visualizer and then okay, there's the problem. Okay. Now we're writing this method. So the problem gives you, okay, so we have to write that method. Okay. So this array, we're told now, the method is going to assume that what it says here is correct, that the array always has size greater than or equal to 2. Okay. And well, let me give you an example of what it means here. Here's an array A, and I'll make it of length I've made this thing have length 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I made it length 5. That means it's going to hold the numbers between 1 and 4. So it has length 5, so it's going to hold the numbers between 1 and 4. Now, if I put the numbers from 1 to 4 in here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, put the 4 in the wrong place. What can I put over here?
Repeat the number.
I have to repeat one of the numbers. Okay, I have to repeat one of the numbers. I'll repeat the 3, for example. So what this is what's saying is A is always a reference to an array of size n that contains integers from 1 to n minus 1 inclusive, with exactly one number repeated. Okay, now suppose I skip the 2 here. Then I'd have to repeat some other number, but it didn't say, it says that only one number is repeated. Okay, so only one, so that means I have to have all the numbers between 1 and n minus 1, and one of them is repeated. And the problem is to find the repeated one. So the method is supposed to return the one that is the repeated one. So here it will return the 3. Okay, here's another example. Suppose I have okay, so this has length 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there's 7 spots. So that would be the numbers between 1 and 6. Okay, so maybe I'll have 6, 4, 2, 1, 3, 2, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now I have to repeat something. See, I've already got the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So now I have to repeat one of them. Say I repeat the 4. Now the problem is find the repeated one. Okay, so then I would call int answer. Oh, the duplicate int is a dot find repeated number. I'm sorry, it's the static method. So find repeated number in A. Okay, so there's some number, there's exactly one number in here that's repeated, and this method is supposed to find it. Okay, and so this should give me the answer that it's the 4 that's repeated. Now the 4, yeah, I put the repeated number at the end. There's nothing that says the repeated number has to be at the end. So for example, I could put the 5 here and the 4 here. Okay, so now it's the 4 that's repeated. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with 4 in there 2 times. Okay, so the question is, how do I search for the one number that's in the array 2 times? Okay, all right, and it says, hint, use nested for loops. Okay, okay. Same, yeah. Now, suppose you're now humans have very good eyesight. You can look at this whole array and you can see a 4. You can see a 4 there and a 4 there. So it's kind of misleading how easy this is. What you have to imagine yourself is like, suppose you're going to show, someone's going to show you the array just one number at a time. So you don't see any of this. You just see that one number. And then you're allowed to see the next number. Then you're allowed to see the next number. Think of a strategy that would let you figure out what number is repeated. Okay, now there's a bunch of different strategies that'll work. The hint here is use nested for loops. The idea is kind of it's not the fastest way to do it, but here's one idea. Pick the first number. Ask if it shows up again in the array. Okay. If it does, then you found your number. Then pick the second number. Ask, does it appear? Then pick the second number and ask, does it appear later in the array? Oh, and then we'll find out that 4 appears later in the array, so that's our answer. If 4 wasn't the answer, then you try the third number and see if it is repeated later in the array. Okay, so what you would do is you need a loop that picks a number, and then inside that loop would be another loop that tests for what comes after it. So down here we would need 2 loops. One loop that picks a number, and then another loop that says, let's check everything that comes after it. So here's the outer loop, for int I equal 0. I'm going to have to go through the whole loop. For int I equals 0, I less than a dot length, I plus plus. Okay, now what this loop's going to do is it's going to pick the number at location I. Okay, so int, let's call it the number, the test number. Let's take the test number is a at I. That's our test number. We're going to test to see if it appears again in the rest of the array. So now I need another for loop. I need a for loop that goes through the rest of the array, and for each, I'm going to make this a j loop. Int j, where should j start? Okay, I picked my test number. I picked a test number, and I want to check if that number appears later in the array. Where does my second loop start?
One.
Well, okay. When I want to check if 4 appears in the loop, do I need to start over?
+1.
Huh?
I +1.
Yeah. So suppose this is my test number. Where do I check? I check from here to here. If this is my test number, I'm going to check if it appears later. See, so where my test number is at I, so I'm going to check it at starting at I plus 1. Where do I stop checking my test? If this is my test number, I go from I plus 1 to where?
Array length.
Array length. So I stop at the length of the array. Okay, all right. So there's my loop that it's going to, I've got my test number, and now I'm going to test for everything after the test number. And my test is, I'm asking if test is equal to a at j. So I'm going to compare my test number to the number after it, then the test number to the number after that, then the test number to the number after that, then the test number to the number after that. Oh, and then, yeah, so I'm going to compare my test number to each of the numbers after it. Okay, and if I'm testing, I need equal, equal. All right. Now, if I succeed, if I found my number, what do I do? Suppose this is true. I found my number. It's the repeated one. So what do I do?
Return it.
Yeah, return it. That'll stop the loop. It'll stop the method. I can just return the test number. I found it. What if, do I need an else clause here? What if I did not find the test number repeated? What if this is false?
You don't need the else clause, right?
Because you do what? If this is false, if you compare this number to that number and they're not equal, what do?
Return nothing or
No. Okay, see, I'm going to compare 4 to 2. They're not equal. I'm going to compare 4 to 1. They're not equal. I'm going to compare 4 to 3. See, if they're not equal, what do?
You go back to the first loop.
You go back. No, you go back to, if this is false, so 4 is not 1.
Oh, you go to the inner loop.
Yeah, you just keep looping. See, you would just keep looping. If this test fails, that just means that like 4 is not 1. So now you compare 4 to 3. If 4 and 3 are not equal, then you compare 4 to 4. Oh, when 4 is equal to 4, then you can return. So when this test fails, you just increment j and go to the next number. Okay. Now, what if, now, we're guaranteed that this is going to succeed at some point. Okay. So this is supposed to succeed at some point. Okay. So, but at the same time, somebody might call our method in a funny way. Somebody might accidentally goof up and do the following. Now they violated the definition. We're told that our method is given an array that has the property that the numbers between 1 and n-1 with one of them repeated. Well, this one violates that property, but I still have to have a return value for that case. Now, what that bad case is going to do is it's going to go all the way to the end of this for loop and never find a match. It's never going to find a match. Okay, so at the end of this it'll have gone through all this looping. It'll tried every one of these numbers and never found a match. So at the end of this for loop, we should never get here, but we have to have something to return. Okay, we have to have a return. Okay, and actually this thing didn't really say. Now Java requires, if we don't have that return, Java is going to complain that we're missing a return value. Oh, let's see. Oh, I wrote a comma here where it should be a semicolon. See, missing a return statement. Okay. This is kind of a little issue in programming. The description said that you're always going to get an input array that has this property. But Java doesn't know that. So Java is saying that, well, no, you have to have a return value for the case where this fails. You have to have some kind of return value for the failure case. Now, what we can do is the following. We can return 0, okay? But that's not really a right answer, okay? Well, actually, it is, well, that can be our, well, here's what we'll do. See, the integers are from 1 to n-1. So actually, let's return -1 and use that as a flag to mean something was wrong. Okay, so we'll return -1 to mean something was wrong. The input was between 1 and n-1, and if somebody did this and never gave us a repeated number, we'll return -1 to mean you did something wrong. It's like searching for like index of. When you ask for the index of a letter and it's not in the string, it returns -1 to mean I failed. Okay, so now this will compile. Okay. And I'll just jump to the end. See, it found the duplicate 4. See, it worked. I mean, we've run out of time, so I can't step through it. But notice it gave the right answer. And if I go back here and I'll make the duplicate. Oh, I'm sorry. This one, there's no duplicate in there now. See, I violated the condition. There's no duplicate. So I should get back, see, -1. See, there was no duplicate. So I get this answer when I don't do the right thing. And let's see. Okay, there's the numbers between 1 and 6 with 5 duplicated. Okay, so there's the numbers 1 through 6 with 5 duplicated, and we got the right answer. Okay, so that's a tricky example. Yeah, this is these are all famous problems. These are all problems you'll see in programming books all over the place. Okay, so like this is a typical puzzle problem that programmers might even get asked in a job interview or whatever. It's a typical kind of problem. It's a tricky one. This one's not one of the easiest ones. Find a repeated number in an array where you're supposedly guaranteed that there is one repeated number. But in our case, if there really isn't a repeated number, we return -1. Okay, all right, so we ran out of time. It's hit the end of class. So if you have any more questions about the homework assignment, the review problems, I'll put these answers up on the course. Yeah, I'll put these two up on the course website. But if you have other questions about these, then send me emails. So if you have questions about these review problems, send me email or come to office hour. There'll be office hour where there's one this afternoon. But mostly just send me email or send a request if you want to talk with me. You don't have to put everything in an email. So if you want to talk, you can send me an email asking for a time to meet. Okay, and otherwise, you have to finish the programming assignment and prepare for the exam. And let's see, when is the programming assignment due? I forgot even now. When is it due?
I think
This
it's
is
currently
Friday.
This
Oh,
Friday.
but the exam is Monday. So I'll how about making that Wednesday? I can't make it past Wednesday because then I won't have time to grade it. Yeah, I forgot that our final exam was at the beginning of the week. See, the final exam is at the beginning of the week. So that gives, right now, studying for the final is probably a little bit more. Though this homework assignment is really good for, I mean, one thing about this homework assignment, it's a really good way to practice for the exam. Yeah,
so we're looking at this being due not the 11th, but the 16th, which is next week, Wednesday.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Let's see. I'm trying to think if I have time to grade it.
Because I think grades are due the 22nd, I believe.
Yeah, but I have a lot of grading to do. Yeah, believe me, it takes a long time to grade all this stuff. I'll make it Tuesday, the day after the final. So that gives you a day after. But otherwise, I'm afraid I won't have time. What do you think? Okay, make it Wednesday. So I'll update it to the 15th. Okay, so the 16th. Yeah, I'll make it the 16th. That'll be 2 days after the final. So that'll give you a little bit more time to of flexibility with doing that homework assignment. Though really work on it, because the homework assignment really is a good way to understand classes. Okay, the assignment really does make you think hard about classes. So since the exam is the first day of the final exam week, I'll make the homework assignment due the 17th. Okay. Okay.
Thanks
And
for a great semester.
oh, sure. Yeah, thank you guys have been pretty good. It's not the easiest thing in the world to be doing it this way. You know, this is not the greatest. Yeah. And next semester is not going to be much different, but next year hopefully will be. Yeah. Next semester, you know, we're gonna have to well, it's probably going to have to be pretty much like this for most of the semester, maybe all of the semester, but hopefully next year will be a lot better. Okay, so I'll remember to update the I'll update this date. I'll update this, and then the homework assignment will be due 2 days after the exam. Okay, so I'll go ahead and stop here. And if you have questions, please write. Please write. Send me emails and stuff. Okay, bye bye. Good luck on the rest of the semester. Good luck on your finals and everything. Bye bye.
Thanks.
Thanks.